I think it's just recognizing that everyone's motivation to be in therapy comes from a different place potentially, and I would never want to take for granted that someone just really believes in therapy and knows it's going to work and is feeling 100% about it. That can change day to day. My name's Caffee. I'm a licensed clinical marriage and family therapist. I've been here in Lawrence for about 6 years. I've been practicing marriage and family therapy since 2004, and I was trained at California State University within their system. So I really enjoy what I do. I see a variety of individuals, couples, full families, and I also work occasionally with children. I used to specialize in children or families with school-age children, and so now I'm here in private practice. You can go to school for something like social work or clinical psychology, or in my case, counseling psychology. And you can get a bachelor's degree and then a master's degree, and then each state has different licensure requirements. So with that comes some additional experience. Like they'll want you to get somewhere in the neighborhood of 3,000 face-to-face hours under supervision. So you're getting taught different things during that time, and then you can sit for a generally what's called a board exam in every state, and you pass that exam and then you're awarded a license. And that's really how you know that somebody is has attained a certain level of legitimacy within the profession. Therapy is a big word. There's a lot of things that can be therapeutic that don't have to be therapy, so I like to keep that in mind. But therapy is a long conversation that is private, but where we're focused on helping individuals achieve goals. Now that's also very broad, but in general, goals toward improving life, reducing distress, improving relationships, and that's definitely an area where I focus a lot as a marriage and family therapist. Even if you come in with an individual issue such as depression or anxiety, I'm going to be trying to help improve the quality of relationships with either yourself, with significant others, or family members, the community even. I try always to be very collaborative in my approach. I certainly wouldn't want to assume why someone who came in, even if they had a certain complaint or concern, why they might want to see me or what their goals might be. So every single session I'm asking a series of questions to help hone and refine goals. So I would say above all, collaborative. I'm very approachable. Again, I have like an open door policy. I like to field questions, and there really are no wrong questions. So I try to pique people's curiosity. And one thing I try to strive to do is to help everyone who comes in become somewhat of a student of human nature. I think that's another thing. So the collaborative part, and then try to learn a little bit or teach a little bit. Just reach out. Do some research if you feel comfortable doing that. I would recommend it. There's a lot of really good information on various websites. Nearly everybody's listed on some website. That's not always true, but I think things like Psychology Today, that's pretty much the one place where you're going to get a lot of information about individuals. But just doing narrow web searches for your area and look at different specializations, look at statements that therapists have read or written, just to kind of give you a sense of who they might be. And then don't be afraid to give them a call, and go meet them, see if they have a free consultation. Sometimes that's a cool deal. They call and say, hey, can I talk to you on the phone for a little bit? And I'd say go with your gut, but if you decide to do it, give it a few sessions before you make a final decision. And get to require yourself to get past that initial discomfort phase if there's a little awkwardness or something, and so you can really tell whether or not it's going to be good for you. Scheduling, and there are a lot of barriers to people who don't have insurance or don't have very good coverage. By good coverage meaning making therapy affordable, because an hour of a therapist's time isn't really the cheapest. And if insurance coverage, if you have a high deductible or a real high copay or something like that, even if you have a policy, you can't use it. So that's a big one. And then kind of unique to the last 2 years is scheduling. Getting somebody on the phone is actually somewhat of a challenge. Some people with jobs actually have something that I hadn't even heard of 10 years ago, but a health savings account or flex spending. I see those being used, and most people who use them to pay for therapy are a little surprised. That's a good thing. Many therapists will offer a sliding fee schedule, so based on income and need, they will work with you on the cost, and it's okay to ask. Say, is there any way you might explain your situation as much as you feel comfortable, but saying, I'm really trying to find something that's good for me, that I can do regularly, but I need it to be more affordable. And there are other options. Sometimes communities, universities that have therapist training programs sometimes will offer low fee counseling as well. Community mental health organizations, or be a community mental health center, I guess is what the actual acronym is. So those are your more public places. Bigger clinics sometimes will have grant-funded programs that where they can help folks who don't have the right kind of coverage too. So that's not all of them, but those are a few ways that people can access services when needed. Therapy is a different type of relationship, and it really exists because of the boundaries. Like the boundary that I have primarily that, I don't share what people talk about in this room with anybody else. I mean, that's an important boundary. But also helping people who come in to see me realize that they're in control of what they're sharing and when, and why we might even be discussing it. So if I ask a particular question, no one's compelled to share it. And I think that being in control of your story is very important, and not feeling pressed or, I'd certainly hope no one ever felt forced, like in an interrogation. That would be a horrible experience. I think that it's very important to dispel myths. For your average person coming into a therapist's office has no idea what all of the processes are, what the even about privacy law, or actually what would actually happen if I had to go to the hospital, for instance. What it takes to get there, what we're trying to accomplish. If you make a recommendation or a referral to the emergency room, why? Why would we do that? It's all in the interest of protecting or preserving life, really, is what those referrals are about. But I think a lot of people are really concerned because they have some erroneous assumptions about it, that if I talk about having had suicidal ideation in the past, that's going to make for a very, very long and horrible day, and that's just simply not the case. So sometimes I'll share that it's super important that we talk about it, and that it doesn't necessarily mean that that's what's going to happen. And I'll even, kind of help with some for instances if they need them. Ask as many questions as you want to ask me. I told somebody that earlier. If you have questions about what would happen in a situation like this, go ahead and ask me. We'll talk it through, and you figure out if you're comfortable enough talking to me about it. But it is very, very important to talk about it. I get really curious, especially even if it's an identity difference that I'm familiar with. I still try to get very curious about who that person is. And I've found that it really doesn't matter to me what the identity is. I know that it's going to be very important. Perspective has an awful lot to do with our experience, and that's born of our identity and the way other people treat us and the social situations that we're in, different prejudices we face. Those all affect all of us individually and differently. So if I'm very curious about that person's experience, that helps me approach more broadly instead of just saying I can only work with this one group or another group. I feel better about that approach too. In general, just daily life, it's a good way to get to know people. Well, one, you've got somebody else in the room. I think that couples therapy is actually more efficient in a lot of ways than individual therapy, because you have two people who know each other to some extent, usually pretty well. They've reached a certain point in conflict, and a lot of that conflict has to do with each of their differences and the things they respond to emotionally, their needs. And if they open up in the right way, you can actually use that to improve their understanding of not only each other but of themselves too, which is really the coolest part about a relationship, is that it can actually not only reveal someone else to you, but reveal yourself to you if it works. If you have two people, there's always going to be a discrepancy in their motivation. But, obviously if you get to a point where both people are equally motivated, it's certainly going to work a lot better. There's no power differential, or there's no game playing there, or no just general disinterest. But when two people come in and I know that they're at different, dramatically different levels of motivation, we work on that first. I want to try to say, well, what do you think about being here, even if it's horrible? Even if you just tell me, I don't want to be here, I don't like your face, I hate this office, I don't want to be here, hate the idea of therapy. So, well, that's a wonderful place to start, actually. And we probably need to talk about that and how we could make, not so therapy has to be this static thing that is just what it is, and you either participate in it or not, like it's some kind of a game. But maybe we can make it work and be more meaningful to that person. And that's sometimes a pretty tall order, but I think it works pretty well that way most of the time.